It burns deep inside you. Do you know my name? Hey, I am from the mountains. I am from the rocks, the trees, yeah. All the stars and constellations I am. I am, you are. I am the peace that passes all understanding. I am the joy that's overflowing. I am the love in abundance. I am, you are. I am. Thank you.
This is the third time that I've had this privilege of introducing Charles here. The boy that he was learned to sing at his grandmother's knee in a small town founded by a missionary. And I'm pretty sure that the Spirit of God must have been powerful in that place because it filled Charles and it has led him throughout his amazing life. It began with his successful college football career. And when you look at Charles and think football, you have to know that God was involved. That was followed up by a brief stint in corporate America, which so pleased his mama. He went on to be a successful recording artist and a Broadway actor, starring in such minor little things as Smokey Joe's Cafe, Jesus Christ Superstar, and The Lion King. He is also the author of 2 inspirational books, which are available in our lobby, one of which concerns the lessons from his relationship with his dad about the freedom of forgiveness. He's the founder of a nonprofit that teaches emotional literacy. He's been given the title of Wisdom Teacher. Charles lives a life of service to the world, sharing his wisdom and a message of healing and empowerment with audiences worldwide. He is a living, breathing example of what can happen in our lives when we're willing to do the work and follow Spirit's call. Please give a great big welcome back to the awesomeness that we call Charles Holt.
Hey, good morning again. Good morning. I think after the first service, Reverend Linda got that it's interesting having a song or music run through you, rush through you like that. For me it is, because to rush right into a spoken word after that thing, I have to take a big breath. So Reverend Linda said, I'll introduce you after the song, okay? I said, that's a good idea. So it's so good to be back here at Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living. It has been 2 years. It's been too long. Yes. I'm glad to be back here. A lot has changed since I was here the last time. I am on my journey back to Broadway. I've been in Los Angeles for 12 years, and a lot of spiritual work, a lot of unearthing has gone on for the last 12 years. And I miss the stage. I've done television and film, and I just miss something about the stage that's just alive, yes? Yeah. It just makes you feel alive, and you get right there. There are no second takes. You just get right with it, and you feel like you're a part of what's unfolding right there. And so I have started a nonprofit, and the relationship that I had with my father was a catalyst for that. And so I do go out and teach and give young adults the opportunity to give themselves permission to change the trajectory of anger, to change the trajectory of triggers, and to look at the emotional body as something that will lead them into this instead of going, well, I don't have to look at emotions because I'm a boy and emotions are for none of that anymore. So I'm teaching them to really garner the magnitude and the intelligence that is held within the emotional body so that we can become better, so that we can do better, make better decisions. Yes, I mean, this is for everybody. So we're changing the planet as we change our consciousness around things that were so-called for them or for not for me, so to speak, but it's for all of us. So this morning, I wanted to share with you a little bit more of the story that Reverend Linda has spoken about. I was born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee, in a small community called Lake Providence, founded in 1868 by a missionary by the name of Larry A. Thompson. Now, everybody knows that story. Everybody in Lake Providence knows it. They said this little man about this tall was running through the city, and he came to a field of thickets and brush, and he stood flat-footed and said, "This is where I'm going to build my church because the providence of God has led me here." And build the church he did. Now, my great-great-grandparents were part of that first settling group. So by the time I came along, I would get all of this information from people in the neighborhood, but particularly from my grandmother, Granny, as she was affectionately called. I'm the third child, the baby. My brother's almost 15 years older than me. My sister's 11 years older than I am. So I stayed with Granny while my parents worked and while my brother and my sister went to school. And my grandmother was a self-taught pianist. So everybody in the community, when they told a story, there was music that came along with it. And my grandmother she would always encourage me to come and sing these songs. And she didn't have a piano at home, so she pretended like she was tapping these notes out on her knees, and she would sit there and go, She would start to sing, and she'd say, "Hey, little boy, come over here and sit next to me. I got a song I want to teach you." Now, at the age of 3 and 4, the last thing that I wanted to do was go sit and learn a song from this woman. Now, I loved my grandmother. My grandmother taught me so many things. She's one of my heroes. But my grandmother had an out-of-tune, raspy, alto voice. And so when Granny was trying to sing songs, I'd try and listen, but sometimes it would just be so hard on the ear. I'd trying to get my head right so I could hear what was trying to come through. But I tell you what, she would begin to sing these songs, and she'd say, "Great is thy faithfulness, O God, my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee." And I would look up, and I'd see Granny's face. Tears would be streaming down my grandmother's face. So I'd tap her on the knee. Granny, are you okay?" My grandmother didn't talk a lot. So there was this tacit agreement. She shook her head. "Yeah, Granny, just fine. Granny's just fine." So these things would become demonstrations to me, but I couldn't articulate what had happened in that room. What I had felt was magnitudinal, but the only thing that was in my mind that my grandmother was okay. It would follow me, though. My father used to set out on the porch. Sunday, during the summer, my mother would be preparing the dinner. He'd listen to Nat King Cole and B.B. King, have a little transistor radio. And I say, "Daddy, can I sit out and listen too?" It was a special time. He said, "Yeah, under one condition." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You can't ask me no questions. You just be quiet and listen to the music." I talked a lot. And so we would hear music from all ranges. And one day I heard this voice. "I was born by the river in a little old tent. And just like that river, I've been What? Running ever since. And my father was old school, you all. Born in 1925. No crying, no emotions. And I'd sit and I'd watch my father rock his head back and forth to the side. Something was in that. First Granny and now Daddy. So music had this way of keeping me in tune with something that was grounded to my ancestry. Because I knew if Granny got it, somebody had given it to her. It was passed down, but you don't, as a child, I didn't understand just where that would fit into my life. And being the youngest, I had perks. You know perks. Getting everything you want with the flash of a smile, of course. Please. You know, everybody went for it except for my father. My father became that catalyst for so many things in my life. So much healing in my life. My father was, like I said, my father was on the old order. Little boys don't cry. Little boys don't go around touching people. You don't talk to grown-ups. Children are seen and not heard. So I would get in trouble all the time. But I couldn't help it because that's how I came here. And so one of the things that I had to always weigh was that relationship with my father growing up. Now, mind you, he was king to me. He was a king. I wanted to be just like him, walk just like him, talk just like him. And my father had a way of putting his elbows on the table to eat. And I would put my little elbows on the table just like him and look over and try and eat just like him. And this went on for a while. I was one of those kids that would run to my daddy and grab his pant leg and say, "Daddy, will you come out and play ball with me?" And my father would shove me, "Move out the way. And little boys don't come up grabbing on people. Stop doing that." I couldn't help it, you know. It was the way that I came to the planet. But after a while, it became interesting. It became interesting listening to all of this social coding, all of this cultural tradition. And a lot of it just didn't sit well with me. But I acquiesced. Play sports, they said. And I jumped right into sports. Play football. Be tough. And I was tough. But I wanted my daddy to be there with me. So I became this celebrated athlete, high school football, All-American football player. I was also a national honor student. Athletics, but academics first. So I got my academic so I could play athletics. That was the way it was coursed out. And every time I'd get a report card, I would run home and I'd show my mother first. I knew she was going to be happy. I knew she would champion everything that I did. But I'd run to my father and I'd place it on the table right in front of him. And he'd look at it and say, conduct, talk too much. That's what you need to work on. And I did. I talked a lot in school. But I thought he would be more proud of the fact that my grades were far up to par. I tried everything. I tried everything. By the time I was 13 years old, I thought to myself, wow, I hope something eventually works because I'm running out of options. I'm just running out of options to get his attention. Now, I am also here as a student of sports, and every weekend my name is in the newspaper. And all my father's friends would come up and tell me, "Oh, we're so proud of you. You did a good job. Boy, you're going to be great. He's going to be something, isn't he?" Talking to my dad, and my father would put his head down and put his hands in his pocket. He wouldn't say a word. I was waiting for that approval, you know. Just a, "Son, I'm proud of you. You did good." Or just a pat on the head or the back just to let me know this is my boy. But I never got it. And out of everything that I tried to do and tried to appease, that was always chasing me. I went to college on a football scholarship, got into college, and I thought, well, this will do it. Out of the house, starting to step into manhood, and he'll finally come around and say, I'm proud of you, son, but he didn't. He didn't. So after college ends, I get a job with IBM. And you know, at every turn when you have a relationship with someone and you're expecting or hoping that they would say something or do something to just give you a slight accolade, even all of that pain and disappointment that was chasing me, I still had hope at some point. Okay, now I'm working with IBM. He'll say something to this effect. And I remember going home. I was living in Memphis at the time, and I went home to Nashville. And my mother knew. And I said, I can't wait to tell Daddy that I'm working at IBM. I've started my own job, and I'm out. I got my own apartment. And I said, Daddy, guess what? I'm working with IBM now. That's nice, he says. And that was it. Drove back to Memphis and I saw a sign, a billboard that said, Jesus cares for you. And I stopped along the street and I said, I don't care if Jesus cares for me. I want my daddy to care for me. It was to that point. Things were concretizing though, in my mind. There's something about me that's not right. I need to change some things. This had been going on for a long time. My father being that figure that I thought he was, that king that I thought he was. Well, he's the right one because he's the authority, yes? There must be something wrong with me. And I tried and I tried and I tried and I tried turning that machine, and something just would not give. By this time in my life, I had come to understand that the world of corporate America was really not my dream. It was my mother's. The whole thing with IBM came to a halt. And one day I was in the office and they gave us this development book. I was flipping through it and I got to a page where it asked, where do you see yourself in 2 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I picked up a pencil and I looked to both sides and I wrote, not here. You know how things just come to your attention and you realize, I'm kind of living the life of somebody else, being the appeasement to someone else's life. That's part of that baby thing, being the youngest, you know? The not-so-perk thing, where everybody has their hand on your life, as they say in the South, and they've already put you into your position by the age of 5. My grandmother said he's going to be a preacher. I know it. Thanks, Granny. You know, my mother said he's going to be a business executive. My aunts and my uncles saw the athletic prowess in me and thought I was going to play professional sports. But after a while, I knew that I needed that thing that kind of guide me through. And I wanted my daddy so much to say, son, this is what you can be, but he never did. So I feel like I am walking by myself. Have you ever felt that way, where you feel like you're walking alone? You want somebody there by your side, but for whatever reason, they can't be, and they're not. So I leave IBM, I go to another job. I think it's probably IBM, so I'll go to another corporate outfit. Lots of money, development, and as my mother say, all of those benefits. And it just didn't work. They fired me a year later. And so I'm trying to hold on to something. So I started going to sing at these nightclubs, these open mics. And if one thing I remembered about what made me so happy were those songs with Granny. Didn't always want to learn them, but once I did. And so I would sing these songs in these jazz clubs. God bless the child. Change gonna come. You know those. And one night I was singing, this gentleman came up to me afterwards and he said, you know what? When you sing, the room changes. And I said, thank you. Didn't fully understand what that meant. He said, things shift when you open your mouth. I said, well, you know what? Things used to do that with my grandmother. Not being able to put the two together at that time. Trying to find my footing somewhere, though. He said, have you ever thought about doing musical theater? I said, absolutely not. Musical theater? Where I came from? Football? Sports? Not just sports, contact sports. All these little boys, if you even thought about talking about taking piano lessons, a fat eye you get. You know, you've heard of those stories where it's just that dynamic in certain places. Sports, performing arts, don't mix with boys. That was the other thing. You be tough. But something about what he said got my attention. I said, what is musical theater? He said, oh, you know, it's dancing on stage and singing on stage and acting on stage. You know how some things in your mind, I know my mind began to become so jaded at that time. I'm not going to be dancing on no stage. That's not me. Couldn't get away from it, though. So I asked him, I said, what should I do? He said, why don't you start auditioning? And I did. The first show that I auditioned for was I Ought to Be in Pictures. Neil Simon. Cast as the lead. Herbert Tucker. That continued to happen. I didn't think anything of it because it was just a pastime to me in my mind, you know. Oh, this is something that I do, but I was beginning to love it. Wouldn't pay for a week's worth of groceries, but there was something about it that was drawing me in. In the South, wherever you have music, you have a story. They tell you a story, it's followed by music. They sing a song, listen to this, they'd say. And this is how it happened. So it was beginning to come to me that what my grandmother had given me was something of value. She had introduced me to something that would really resonate with the inner core of who I was. Not what people thought that I should be, but who I knew that I was. So I said, I'll take a stand and I'll go to musical theater. And I got a call from Kenny Leon. Kenny Leon has gone on to Broadway and won the Tony for directing Fly. And he was the artistic director of the Alliance Theater in Atlanta at the time. And he called me out of the blue. And he says, Charles Holt, this is Kenny Leon. I don't know you. You don't know me. But there are 3 people in the cast that have heard you sing. We're doing the Amen Corner by James Baldwin. We have 3 weeks, and we just had someone drop out. I need someone right away. He said, I want to offer you something. I said, yes, sir. He said, and I'll offer you the contract under one condition. I said, yes. He said, you better be good. I took the contract, did the Amen Corner. Everything is coming up music in my life now, and the stage. And I remember one night I was going up for the top of second act. They had called places, please, to the top of act 2. And I'm ready to come out of my dressing room, and I hear this voice say, it's time. I didn't know what that meant. All of these things are being spoken to me now about music and how my grandmother really put all of that in motion for me without me even knowing it. And I had met a gentleman the year before who was down in Atlanta doing Boys from Syracuse. Came to hear me sing at the nightclub. And he comes up to me and he says, wow, you'd be great for this show that I'm getting ready to go back to New York to premiere. It's called Smokey Joe's Cafe. You ought to go get the soundtrack and listen to all the songs. And I did. And all during the year, I'd find myself just striking a pose. I could be in the middle of a restaurant and just, I'd come back to myself and say, oh, excuse me, I just had a moment. And right then and there I thought, there's something to this. As crazy as it may sound, I went out and purchased a ticket, a one-way ticket. I thought the voice was telling me it's time to move to New York, so I heeded. Went and got my ticket. Now, anytime you leave anywhere and go somewhere else, but somewhere just drastic, the South to New York, there's one person you have to clear it with, and that's your mama. So I called my mother, who's my best friend, and she'd heard it all, from the football to IBM, getting fired, and now I'm in musical theater. But now I want to go to New York. So I called Mom. My mother has always had a way, and I think most mothers have a way of understanding when their children is about to throw them a curveball. So I call my mom, and I say, hey, Mom, guess what? I said, I'm getting ready to move to New York. She says. She says, I want to ask you a question. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, how do you go from IBM, fast track, great salary, and all those benefits, to the most unstable profession there is? I want to offer you this, son. I said, yes, ma'am. Go to the yellow pages. I said, yes. She said, go to the business section and go from A to P real quick. I said, I'm at P. She says, go to PS. I said, I'm at PS. She said, find the word psychiatrist. Find the word psychiatrist and call the first listing. Doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. Call them up, schedule an appointment to go in and see them, and once you come out, you'll be okay, because you have lost your mind. I promised my mom that I would, and I did. I said, the only thing is that I've already purchased my ticket. I have to go. It was that part of me that was trying to find it, mine. I had lived the life that I thought everybody else wanted me to live. I tried to appease my father into just saying one thing: I love you. And it just hadn't worked. So I thought, let me work on me now. Let me do my life. And I got to New York and landed on West 87th Street between Columbus and Central Park West. Put my things down, ran out to the corner of the street, and there was taxis whizzing down the street, dogs barking, children everywhere, people everywhere, buildings to the sky, it seemed like, and I opened my arms and I said, I'm home. I'm home. Had no idea what was about to unfold, but something inside of me resonated with what I saw and the feeling tone of that. First show that I auditioned for, got in for was Jesus Christ Superstar. Line wrapped all the way around the block. 450 people waiting to sing 32 bars of a song. I've already picked out my sheet music. So I finally arrive, and the accompanist calls me over, and I said, I'm going to sing something from Aladdin. You know, I can show you the world. I was ready for it. And I went to hand the sheet music to him, and all of a sudden I said, I don't want to sing it. I want to sing something else. And he says, well, what do you want to sing? I said, I don't know. He says, sing an anthem. I know anthems. My grandmother taught me anthems. I said, which anthem? He said, sing America the Beautiful. I stood behind the X, went to take my breath to sing, and I forgot the words to America the Beautiful. Took another deep breath, and all I heard was, open that big mouth of yours, and the words will come to you. See, Granny had transitioned the year before, but she was there. Just something, somebody to hold on to. Just when you think you're alone, you know, somebody shows up. I took the breath, oh, beautiful, for spacious skies. Went on tour with Jesus Christ Superstar for 6 months. Got cast in my first show. Understudied Judas, and I played Simon. A whole new world was opening up for me. But I still had that thing, the daddy thing. I thought, once I leave the South, once I move to New York, once I go on tour, all of that pain and disappointment and hurt, it'll go away. I can just sweep it under the achievements, the accolades, the songs, you know. But I couldn't, because everything was connected. Everything was connected. I got off tour with Jesus Christ Superstar, and I sat on the edge of my bed in my apartment. I was living in Harlem at the time. And I remember a voice saying, call him. Call him now. I took a deep breath. I had to find courage. Picked up the phone, called. My mother answered the phone. I said, Mommy, is Daddy anywhere around? She says, he's right here. I said, put him on the phone. My father answers the phone. I remember that dry tone. That giant of a man, you know. He says, hello. And in that moment, all the courage that I had garnered went into this state of fear. And I went up and down a laundry list of things he had said to me. Do you remember any of this, I said. He said, I think you got the wrong one. I heard the voice say, tell him. Say it. And I said, Daddy, I forgive you. Silence. Well, I was angry because there was no response. So I went down the other laundry list. And as I was getting to the apex of anger, I heard something say it, tell him what you've always thought about him. Just tell him. And I said, Daddy, I love you. I always have, and I always will. And I got off the phone, and I cried, and I cried, and I cried. I cried myself to sleep. And when I woke up, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, I heard something like a band in my head. There's no band outside. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Congratulations, you did it. I did what? You set in motion a covenant. You released him, but you freed yourself. The covenant was for you to speak into the truth of who you are. Not the situation, not the condition, not the pain, not the disappointment, not the shame or the blame, but the truth of who you are. And I said, I don't understand that. It's still painful. I said, it will be. But you can't help it. You've launched the covenant. That was 2007, January 2007. 2009 rolls around. Now, I've been telling my father all along, every time I go home for a break, Daddy, I love you. Call you when I get back to New York. His response, mm-hmm. So 2009, my mother calls and she says, well, your father has to go on dialysis. His kidneys are gone. And I said, well, I can do whatever I do from anywhere. I'm coming home. I'll come home for like 4 months and help fray all of the responsibilities that you have, and I'll help Daddy. And I remember that morning, he had just come back from a session. I opened the door. And this man walks in. A man that I don't recognize anymore. The man that I knew that I called my father was 6 foot, strapping, shape, had a stride. The man I was looking at now was about this tall, bent over with a walker. And I remember in that moment I became so angry. Where did you go? You're not the father that I knew. Just anything would rise up and make me angry, resentful of my father. And my father shuffled his way on over to the table. My mother was preparing food for him. And he turns, and I'm just behind him. He turns and he looks. It's a quick look. And he says, oh, there's my baby. Daddy loves you. I was in between a fence. So in that small period of time, there was this part of me that was so sad and hurt. Where was that when I was 3 and 4 and 5 years old? I was grabbing at your pant leg. I wanted you to say that so badly, but you didn't. Where was that when I was 13, 14, 15 years old? I was trying to find someone that could help me choose my college, choose my future, and it was you. Where was that? And then there was that part of me that I'd worked on. It was called the covenant. And I heard the invitation. He's ready. He's ready now. Are you? And I looked at him and I said, Daddy, I love you too. It's not an easy thing. That whole forgiveness. Letting go. I could have said no. What you did and what you said to me, but I'd set the covenant in motion. It was all connected. I didn't know how, but it was. That was one thing that I knew. Is that for me to be my best, for me to do my best, I had to let it go. Does it still creep up? It does. My father transitioned in 2013. It still does. I see the red hat that he used to wear. So I wonder why my daddy never held my hand and took me to church with him. I still think about those things. February of 2013, I went home. the last 5 days of my father's life. He was in the palliative ward, Vanderbilt Hospital in Nashville. In the last 3 days, he could not talk. He was not coherent at all. And I went into meditation and into this realm where we both could communicate. And he said, son, I know there were things that you wanted me to say that I didn't. I know that there were things that you wanted me to be a part of, but I couldn't. Nobody told me that they loved me when I was growing up. My daddy never said it to me. My father set us out and so said, go be a man. So we tried to become what we thought a man was to the best of our ability. I didn't have it to give to you. The things that I said to you that landed so hard on you, I was trying to tell you that I loved you through that. But I didn't know how to say it. Because I saw the genius in you. I didn't want you to get mixed up. I didn't want you to rest on your laurels and get too comfortable because you got great things to do. It changed everything. I said, okay. He said, and oh, by the way, I'm leaving. And I'll be able to fly with you everywhere you go. I'll never leave you. If I had never gotten to that place, I don't know where my life would have been, but I give so many thanks to my father for staying around long enough for me to get it. To get a semblance of what it was that I thought I needed so desperately, that was always there. Not the way that I wanted it, but the way that it was. It wasn't letting him off the hook. It was giving him wings to fly, and me too. I invite you in this moment right now, if there's anything, anyone that comes up, they keep coming up, that you need to let go. I invite you to step into your covenant. I forgive you. But what you were really saying is, I forgive me. I release myself and I let go. It's time. Whatever it is that we're going through, it's here to make us better, to make us stronger, so that we can be better and do better. And out of all of what I term the good, the bad, the indifferent, and the awful, it's a blessing. It's a blessing in disguise under all of that rock that seems to be blocking us from our greatest yet to be. Let's go into prayer. I invite you to close your eyes. And as we do, we realize that something in us is on the precipice of becoming so great, so grand, so glorious, so magnificent. It's after us. It is who and what we are. It's the essence of who and what we are and what we came to the planet to reveal and demonstrate. And it will have the final word. In this moment, Father, Mother God, how great thou art. How magnificent thou art. How glorious and grand thou art. The presence, the omnipresence, the omniscience, the omniactive, the all-knowing. As I speak for myself, I speak for everyone under the sound of my voice in this room. So thankful and grateful for life, the peace, the joy, the abundance, the creativity, the health and wholeness. All of that which I call life. This is my life, and this is the life of God. My life is the life of God. And I say yes to this unfolding. Don't know everything about it, but Spirit does. Spirit knows it all. The guidance. It all comes back to the good that we were introduced to in the beginning. The good that we still are. The ancestors, the holy angels, the teachers, the elders. Thank you. I'm grateful for it all. For my life is unfolding in a beautiful way. Life is good. I'm going to say yes to life. Yes to the good that is unfolding in my life. Then everywhere present, because I have become the illumination of this divine presence that I call God, that I call the divine spirit, infinite intelligence. I give great thanks for this and so much more. And we all say, and so it is. Amen. Thank you.